Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone. If you feel lost right now, it might not mean you're behind. It might mean you're finally listening. There's a quiet moment that comes before any real change, and it's rarely dramatic. It's the moment when you stop pretending you know where you're going. When you finally admit to yourself, not to the world, that something feels off, not broken, not ruined, just unclear. And that admission can feel terrifying because we've been taught that not knowing means we're failing, falling behind, or wasting time. But the truth is much softer than that. Feeling lost is often the first honest thing you've allowed yourself to feel in a long time. For many people, life becomes a performance. You learn how to look confident even when you're confused. You learn how to stay busy so no one asks questions. You learn how to say, "I'm fine," even when your inner world feels scattered and heavy. And over time, that performance becomes exhausting. Being lost isn't the problem. Pretending you're not is. There is courage in pausing long enough to say, "I don't know what I'm doing right now." That sentence doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're awake. Awareness often arrives disguised as discomfort. The moment you notice that your old answers no longer fit, that your old motivations no longer energize you, that the life you're living feels misaligned, that's not collapse. That's clarity beginning to form. So many people rush past this moment because it's uncomfortable. They want immediate solutions, 5-step plans, quick fixes, but clarity doesn't respond well to pressure. You can't bully yourself into knowing what's next. You can't shame yourself into purpose. The more you force answers before you're ready, the further you drift from what's true. When you admit you're lost, something important happens inside you. The noise quiets just enough for honesty to step in. You stop measuring yourself against everyone else's timeline. You stop asking, "What should I want?" and start asking, "What actually feels true for me right now?" That shift may feel small, but it's everything. Being lost often means you've outgrown something, a role, a dream, an identity that once made sense but no longer fits. And growth like that doesn't come with a map. It comes with uncertainty. It comes with a sense of standing between who you were and who you're becoming without clear instructions. That in-between space is uncomfortable, but it's also sacred. There's nothing wrong with you for feeling disoriented. Sometimes confusion is simply your inner compass recalibrating. Sometimes the fog isn't blocking the path. It's slowing you down so you don't walk into the wrong one. The most dangerous thing you can do in this moment is pretend you already know the way. So instead of asking yourself to be certain, ask yourself to be honest. Name what feels unclear without judging it. Notice where you're tired of forcing things. Pay attention to what no longer excites you and what still quietly matters. You don't need answers yet. You need permission to not have them. This is where awareness begins, not with a breakthrough, but with a breath. With the simple, brave acknowledgement that you're standing at a crossroads and it's okay to pause before choosing a direction. Slowing down sounds simple on the surface, but for many people it feels deeply unsettling, almost threatening. The moment you stop rushing, stop filling every silence, stop distracting yourself with constant motion, something rises up inside you. Thoughts you've been avoiding, emotions you've postponed, questions you didn't have the energy to ask. And that's why slowing down is so uncomfortable, not because it's wrong, but because it's honest. For a long time, speed can feel like safety. If you keep moving, you don't have to feel. If you stay productive, no one questions your worth. If you're busy, you don't have to sit with the quiet fear that maybe you don't know what you're doing or where you're going or who you're becoming. So you push, you stay occupied, you tell yourself you'll rest later, reflect later, feel later, and later quietly never comes. When you finally slow down, the first thing you often feel isn't peace, it's unease, restlessness, guilt, a sense that you should be doing more, achieving more, proving something to someone, maybe even to yourself. Slowing down can feel like falling behind, especially in a world that rewards urgency and celebrates exhaustion as dedication. But exhaustion isn't a badge of honor. It's often a warning sign. Stillness has a way of revealing what constant motion hides. It brings you face to face with the parts of yourself you've been managing instead of listening to. The sadness you never processed, the resentment you minimized, the dreams you quietly buried because they didn't seem practical or safe. And when those things surface, the instinct is to run again, to scroll, to plan, to distract, to speed up. But here's the deeper truth. The discomfort you feel when you slow down isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're finally paying attention. Slowing down removes the noise that's been drowning out your inner voice. And that voice might not be calm or clear at first. It might sound tired, confused, even angry. That doesn't mean it's broken. It means it's been ignored. Many people confuse slowing down with giving up. They worry that if they pause, they'll lose momentum, miss opportunities, or disappoint others. But slowing down isn't quitting. It's recalibrating. It's choosing to respond instead of react. It's creating enough space to understand what you actually need instead of what you've been conditioned to chase. There's also fear in slowing down because it asks a hard question. What if I stop and realize I'm not okay? What if I feel things I don't know how to fix? What if I discover I've been living on autopilot? Those are heavy realizations, but avoiding them doesn't make them disappear. It only makes them louder over time. When life feels overwhelming, the instinct is often to push harder, to be more disciplined, to demand clarity immediately. But clarity doesn't come from pressure. It comes from presence, from noticing patterns, from understanding what drains you and what restores you, from recognizing when your body is signaling that it needs rest, not resistance. Slowing down allows you to hear those signals. The tightness in your chest when you say yes out of obligation, the heaviness you feel when you wake up already tired, the quiet relief you experience when something is canceled and you finally get to breathe. These aren't inconveniences, they're information. There's a reason so many people feel lost when they never stop. Direction requires reflection. You can't see where you're going if you never look at where you are. Slowing down gives you that perspective. It helps you notice when you've been chasing approval instead of alignment, productivity instead of purpose. And yes, slowing down can feel lonely at first. When you step off the fast track, you may feel disconnected from people who are still racing. You may feel misunderstood, like you're doing life wrong, but what you're actually doing is choosing to live more intentionally. You're choosing depth over speed, meaning over momentum. This kind of slowing down doesn't require dramatic changes. It starts small. A few minutes of quiet without your phone, a walk without a destination, a moment where you ask yourself how you actually feel, not how you think you should feel. These small pauses are powerful because they interrupt patterns that have been running your life without your consent. Over time, slowing down teaches you to trust yourself again. You begin to realize that you don't need to rush to be worthy. You don't need to constantly prove your value. You are allowed to move at a pace that honors your nervous system, your energy, your truth. That realization can feel radical in a culture obsessed with more, faster, louder. There is wisdom in restraint, strength in softness, courage in choosing to pause when everything around you says to hurry. Slowing down is not an escape from life. It's a return to it. It's how you come back into your body, your emotions, your inner compass. And eventually something shifts, the discomfort softens, the silence becomes less threatening. You start to feel grounded instead of restless. You begin to sense what matters and what doesn't. You don't suddenly have all the answers, but you feel more anchored asking the questions. You're no longer running from yourself. Slowing down doesn't make life smaller. It makes it clearer. It gives you the space to heal what's been rushed, to listen to what's been ignored, and to move forward, not out of fear, but out of truth. There's a delicate courage required when you begin to trust yourself again. It's not the kind of bravery celebrated in movies or applauded on stages. It's quieter, subtle, the kind that doesn't announce itself with grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It shows up in the small daily choices, the decision to pause before reacting, to listen before speaking, to act based on your own understanding rather than the world's expectations. Choosing self-trust over urgency asks you to slow down, breathe, and honor the inner voice you've been too busy to hear. Most of us are conditioned to believe that clarity and certainty are prerequisites for action. We feel pressure to decide quickly, to move efficiently, to have an answer before we even know the question. And when we don't, self-doubt creeps in. We fear that hesitation equals weakness, that waiting signals incompetence, that asking for time to think is proof that we're not enough. But rushing doesn't create clarity, it obscures it. Urgency often amplifies fear rather than dissolving it. Trusting yourself requires stepping into discomfort. It means making peace with the fact that you may not know the perfect move, and that's okay. Life rarely gives absolute guarantees. The world doesn't promise smooth paths or flawless timing. And yet, in the absence of certainty, you have the power to listen to yourself, to notice what resonates, what feels true, what aligns with your values. That's how decisions gain integrity and direction, not from external validation or hasty pressure. The struggle of self-trust is intimately tied to fear. Fear whispers that you'll make the wrong choice, that others will judge you, that time will run out. Fear insists that if you delay, you're failing. But the truth is, choosing trust over urgency is not indecision. It's discernment. It's the ability to sit in the gray spaces long enough to hear the subtle guidance that often gets drowned out by the noise of the world. Many people confuse waiting with weakness. They think they must constantly move to prove they are capable. But movement without alignment is exhausting. It leaves you empty, anxious, and disconnected from yourself. When you act from a place of trust rather than panic, even small steps carry purpose. You're not scrambling, you're navigating thoughtfully, you're not reacting, you're responding intentionally. That difference may seem invisible at first, but it transforms the way life unfolds. The courage to trust yourself also requires self-compassion. You can't demand perfection from yourself in the midst of uncertainty. You can't berate yourself for not having all the answers. Instead, you cultivate patience and gentleness. You remind yourself that the inner compass you're learning to follow has always been there, even when you ignored it, even when you doubted it. This kind of self-trust grows slowly, nurtured by repeated acts of noticing, listening, and honoring your own instincts. There's also an important lesson in mistakes. Trusting yourself doesn't mean you'll never falter. You will make choices that don't work out. You will stumble, but each misstep becomes an opportunity for deeper understanding. You learn what aligns with you and what doesn't, what feels authentic and what feels imposed. Self-trust is strengthened by the very moments we once feared would break us. It's built on reflection, not perfection. Courage in this context is the quiet insistence that you are worthy of guidance from within. It's the act of leaning into uncertainty rather than running from it. It's the realization that you already have what you need to navigate life. You just need to believe it, honor it, and act from it. When you start to trust yourself, the pressure to conform to timelines, expectations, or the opinions of others begins to lift. You begin to move through life with more alignment, more clarity, and more resilience. And slowly, you notice a shift. Decisions feel lighter. You move with intention instead of obligation. You recognize when external pressure is influencing you and when your inner voice is guiding you. Life doesn't become perfectly smooth, but it becomes steadier. You gain a sense of orientation that doesn't rely on certainty, deadlines, or validation. You begin to understand that your own wisdom, when honored, is far more reliable than the urgency dictated by the world. Choosing trust over urgency is not a one-time act. It's a practice. Each day you pause before reacting. Each moment you listen to yourself before deciding. Each time you allow your intuition to guide you, you reinforce the foundation of self-trust. It's not glamorous, it's not loud, but it is transformative. The courage to slow down, reflect, and follow your own guidance quietly reshapes the way you live, the choices you make, and the way you relate to yourself and others. Ultimately, trusting yourself means believing that you are enough right here, right now, even when life is unclear. You don't need all the answers. You don't need to move faster or prove anything. You simply need to honor the process of listening, noticing, and responding from a place of honesty. And in doing so, you create a life that isn't driven by fear, urgency, or expectation, but by your own authentic rhythm and inner wisdom. There comes a point in life when holding on feels heavier than letting go. You realize that some of the expectations, identities, and stories you've carried no longer serve you. The version of yourself you once imagined, the one you thought would succeed, be perfect, or be enough, starts to feel constricting, almost like wearing clothes that no longer fit. And the truth is, growth almost always requires some form of letting go. It's rarely neat or painless. It often comes with grief, resistance, and fear. But in releasing what no longer fits, you make space for what is real and possible. Letting go is difficult because we are deeply attached to familiarity, even when it's no longer aligned with who we are. We cling to old identities, roles, or relationships because they've defined us for so long. They've offered a sense of security, a framework for our lives, a story we can tell about ourselves that feels understandable. Even when that story no longer fits, letting it go can feel like stepping into a void. And yet, that void is not emptiness, it's potential. It's the space where something new can grow, where your true self can finally breathe. Many people resist change because it forces confrontation with uncomfortable truths. There's fear of being judged, of failing, of disappointing others, and most importantly, fear of losing ourselves in the process. We worry that if we let go of who we thought we would be, we won't recognize ourselves anymore. But the self you are leaving behind isn't lost, it's evolved. She has served her purpose, and now it's time for a new chapter, one that aligns with your values, passions, and truth. Letting go requires courage because it means accepting uncertainty. You may not know exactly what will replace the old version of yourself. You may not have a clear vision of where you are going, what you will become, or how you will feel along the way. That uncertainty can be terrifying, yet it is within that uncertainty that growth happens. It is in those moments of discomfort, when you no longer cling to old definitions, that you begin to discover your authentic path. The process is not linear. There will be setbacks. There will be moments when you question yourself, when you long for the familiar, when you feel vulnerable and exposed. That is part of the journey. You will be tested, not to break you, but to stretch you. You will learn that clinging too tightly to what no longer fits only creates tension, while letting go invites alignment and flow. One of the hardest parts of letting go is confronting the expectations of others. You may feel guilt or shame for refusing to live according to someone else's vision of you. Friends, family, society, they may have ideas about who you should be, what you should do, or where you should go. And when you choose a different path, when you release old versions of yourself, it can create conflict or doubt. Yet staying true to your own growth is the only way to live authentically. The opinions of others cannot define your worth or your direction. Letting go also means grieving. Grief is a natural companion to transformation. You grieve not because you failed, but because you are recognizing the limits of an old chapter and making space for a new one. Allowing yourself to feel that grief is not weakness. It is an act of honesty and self-respect. Suppressing it only prolongs the transition. Embracing it allows you to move forward with clarity, understanding, and compassion for yourself. This kind of change requires reflection. You must ask yourself hard questions. What no longer aligns with my truth? Which roles, beliefs, or habits am I holding on to out of fear or comfort? What do I want to carry forward? And what do I need to release? Answering these questions demands courage because the answers are often uncomfortable, yet they are essential for growth. When you begin to release what no longer serves you, you may notice a shift in your energy. It is subtle at first, a lightness in your step, a clarity in your thinking, a quiet confidence that you are moving in alignment with your true self. These shifts are proof that transformation is happening. You are not losing yourself. You are finding yourself in a deeper, more authentic way. Growth is rarely about adding more. It is often about subtracting. Letting go is not about giving up on life. It is about giving yourself permission to evolve. It is about recognizing that the path you once thought was necessary may not be the one that serves your purpose or nurtures your soul. True freedom comes when you stop holding on to what limits you and start embracing what you were meant to become. The journey of letting go is ongoing. It doesn't end after one big decision or one moment of clarity. Life continuously asks us to release, adjust, and realign. but each act of letting go makes the next one easier. Each time you shed what no longer serves you, you build resilience, self-awareness, and courage. You learn that you can survive uncertainty, that you can thrive outside of expectations, and that your true self is always enough. Ultimately, letting go is an act of love. Love for yourself and the life you are meant to live. It is a conscious choice to prioritize authenticity over comfort, alignment over approval, and growth over stagnation. It's a decision to honor the journey even when the path is unclear, and to trust that what emerges from the release will be far richer, more aligned, and more fulfilling than anything you held onto out of fear. Growth is rarely loud. It rarely arrives with confetti, fireworks, or dramatic proclamations. More often, it is quiet, subtle, and imperceptible to anyone but you. It creeps in through the small choices, the moments of reflection, the tiny adjustments in how you relate to yourself and the world. It's not measured by milestones or recognition, but by the way your inner world begins to shift. You start noticing patterns in your thinking, recognizing when you're acting out of fear instead of clarity, and feeling a steadier sense of alignment with your values and intentions. Real growth happens in the slow unfolding, not in the sudden breakthroughs we often chase. One of the most challenging aspects of growth is patience. We live in a culture obsessed with speed, with immediate results, with measurable progress, and yet the most meaningful changes often take time, months or even years of quiet practice, reflection, and self-compassion. It can feel frustrating when the world demands action, when social media highlights the highlight reels of others' lives, when success seems instantaneous everywhere else. But your journey is your own. Real transformation is subtle, and it doesn't need to announce itself to anyone. Growth also requires self-honesty. You can't evolve without looking at yourself clearly, without acknowledging the parts of your life, your behaviors, and your patterns that are no longer serving you. This is uncomfortable because it requires vulnerability. It requires admitting mistakes, facing regrets, and recognizing your limitations. But these moments of discomfort are essential. They are the points of leverage where change begins. Without them, growth stagnates. Without honesty, transformation remains superficial. Another critical aspect of growth is resilience. As you let go of old identities, release expectations, and navigate uncertainty, you will encounter setbacks, doubts, and fears. You will stumble. You will feel lost again. But this is not failure. It is part of the process. Each time you confront your fears, each time you face uncertainty instead of running from it, you strengthen your inner resources. You develop a resilience that allows you to continue growing even when life feels unpredictable or overwhelming. Growth is also deeply personal. It does not need to be validated by others, and it cannot be truly measured against anyone else's journey. Your pace, your timing, and your process are unique. Comparing yourself to others only distracts from the subtle, meaningful progress happening within you. Growth manifests in small but significant ways. In how you respond to challenges, in how you treat yourself, in the quiet courage you summon to face each day with integrity and awareness. One of the most beautiful aspects of growth is the quiet confidence it builds. It's not arrogance or pride, but a calm assurance that you are capable of navigating life's complexities, that you can trust yourself even when certainty is absent, and that you are worthy of your own care and attention. This confidence doesn't require external validation. It comes from the accumulation of small, consistent acts of awareness, courage, and self-trust. It grows in the spaces where you choose honesty over convenience, reflection over reaction, and alignment over obligation. Growth also requires a commitment to presence. You cannot evolve while constantly distracted by what comes next, by what could have been, or by what you fear others might think. Presence is the foundation for noticing patterns, recognizing opportunities for change, and feeling the subtle shifts that signal real transformation. By practicing presence, you become aware of your emotions, your needs, and your values in a way that allows for intentional and aligned action. Another essential element of growth is gratitude for the journey itself, not just the destination. Too often, we wait to feel successful, complete, or worthy until some external measure is achieved. But real growth happens in the journey, the messy, uncomfortable, beautiful, confusing process of becoming. Recognizing progress, however small, fosters a sense of momentum and reinforces the belief that transformation is not only possible but inevitable when approached with patience, awareness, and self-compassion. As growth unfolds, you begin to notice the subtle ways it touches every area of life. Relationships change because you no longer tolerate disrespect, dishonesty, or misalignment with your values. Decisions feel clearer because you have learned to listen to your inner guidance rather than external pressures. Challenges feel less intimidating because you have cultivated the resilience to face uncertainty without panic. And most importantly, you begin to recognize that the person you are becoming is not defined by past failures, limitations, or doubts, but by the ongoing commitment to awareness, courage, and integrity. Finally, growth teaches a profound truth, that you are always enough, even in the process of becoming. You do not need to hurry, you do not need to prove yourself, and you do not need to achieve perfection. The slow, subtle unfolding of your character, your understanding, and your inner alignment is more powerful than any dramatic display. Each day, each choice, each moment of honesty and courage adds to a foundation that is resilient, authentic, and deeply human. Growth in its purest form is quiet, steady, and transformative. It does not demand attention, it simply persists. It teaches patience, builds resilience, fosters self-trust, and deepens understanding. And in the end, it reminds you that the journey, slow, reflective, and full of conscious choice, is itself the reward, shaping a life of authenticity, alignment, and unwavering courage.